All right, guys, I'm Peter Overzet, and today I'm going to show you how to play one of my new favorite formats for fantasy football, and that's Underdog's Pick Em style contests, and specifically how to build out multiple Pick Em picks for a single game. And this is going to be very important here as we head into the playoffs. We don't have as many draft style contests, so building out some of these Pick Em entries around a single game is a great way to sweat it, and it's a self-contained sweat, right? You don't necessarily have to wait for a day's worth of games to play out, or if you're mixing and matching Pick Ems across multiple sports, it could take a while for that entry to play itself out. But when you build around a single game, you get that clean sweat, and today I'm gonna give you the tips and tricks that I like to utilize when I'm building out a Pick Em portfolio for a game. And we should wind it back just a little bit. If you guys aren't familiar with the Pick Em format on Underdog Fantasy, they basically allow you to string together anywhere from 2 to 5 picks. And these are players based on their fantasy performance in a given category where you take a higher or a lower. And as you can see on the screen, based on how many picks you put in your entry, your payout will be different. So if you do a pick 2, that'll pay out 3 to 1. If you do a pick 3, that'll pay out 6 to 1. If you do a pick 4, that'll pay out 10 to 1. And if you do a pick 5, that'll pay out 20 to 1. And I should also mention, over on Fantasy Life, we have an entire page dedicated to free picks on Underdog Fantasy. Our team does a great job. It's spearheaded by the very sharp Geoff Ulrich, who, by the way, has been on absolute fire lately. I always check out his picks over there on the Underdog page before I build out my Pick Em entries. And there's lots of things you can do with these. You can mix and match them across sports. You can have them from multiple games. But for the purposes of today's video, I want to focus on building out pick'ems around a single game. And this is fun for a couple of reasons. One, because the sweat is self-contained, right? It's all going to happen in a single game. You know what you're rooting for, and you know when the game is over, whether you won or lost. And then the other fun angle is you can build out a story. Basically, how you think the game is going to flow. You can have your picks work together in a correlated way to where if your macro thesis of the game is correct, there's a really good chance you could win your entire Pick Em entry. So today I'm going to go step by step through how I would go about building a Pick Em for a single game on Underdog Fantasy. Number one, the very first thing we want to do is figure out who is going to be in our core, who are going to be our core picks, because at the very least we need 2 picks, and those 2 picks also must come from 2 different teams. We're going to talk today about this Bills and Dolphins game on Sunday night. That's the game we're going to use to kind of talk through how you go about doing this. And in that scenario, we can't have 2 Bills, we can't have 2 Dolphins if we're just doing a 2-pick entry. We have to have at least 1 Dolphin and at least 1 Bills, and from there we can put as many on one side or the other once we have at least 2 teams involved in the Pick Em. And because I was just mentioning how sharp Geoff is over at Fantasy Life with these, I'm going to use one of the picks he has already flagged and put in our Underdog Pick Em tracker, and that's Stefon Diggs going higher than 60.5 receiving yards. Diggs, of course, having a little bit of a down year, but his target share and underlying utilization is still awesome, and you have to expect that they're going to be throwing the ball to try to keep up with Miami here in a must-win game on the road. Now, if we're going to go to a Dolphin, I can't really think of anyone else that I would want to put in this entry other than Tyreek Hill as a place to start. I mean, he has been the focal point for the Dolphins offense. I think he also correlates in a smart way with Stefon Diggs. If he's racking up lots of yards, maybe this game is getting sped up, and Tyreek Hill is having a really good game as well. On top of that, you have all of the incentives on the line. Not only do the Dolphins want to win so they can win the AFC East, but Tyreek Hill wants to chase down that 2,000-yard milestone. He's trying to chase Calvin Johnson's single-season receiving yard record. And while he's a couple hundred yards off both of those, you know he's highly motivated to get out there and make some big plays. And he's also averaging 114.5 yards receiving yards per game this season. So at 97.5 yards, for most receivers, that's a big number. But if we get a shootout and you consider Tyreek Hill in this spot, I actually think it's a pretty reasonable number. Now, we could definitely lock this in right now. I could put in $10, get our 3x here, 10 to win 30, and we could move on with our day. However, I really like building out picks on top of the core, trying to think what other logical picks work in concert with what we've already put in our entry. And the first kind of natural place to go when you're thinking about these correlations is the quarterbacks, right? If the wide receivers are having success through the air, it's most likely their quarterbacks are as well. So immediately, I want to go look at Tua here and see what kind of stuff we have. We do have 263.5 passing yards, but one little wrinkle you guys need to know about. Underdog knows that Tyreek Hill's receiving yards and Tua's passing yards are directly correlated. And if I put Tua passing yards in here, you can notice our payout is actually less than the standard 6x. Basically what's happening is they're putting a negative correlation boost in there of saying, hey, this is actually a way that these picks are closer in likelihood of hitting together than otherwise, and so we have to dock this. But there are some fun ways that you can kind of get around this. And I think going with the passing TDs is a way that you're getting access to a correlated pick with Tyreek Hill's with Tyreek Hill's receiving yards without getting the dock. You see, if I put in Tua higher than 1.5 TDs here, we still get our 6x payout. And, you know, Tua had 2 passing TDs last week in their blowout loss against the Ravens. And so I think this makes intuitive sense to me, right? If they're playing catch up, if they're down to the Bills, if Tyreek Hill's racking up yards, I like Tua here at 1.5 passing TDs. Now, you might think, okay, let's go in and do Josh Allen passing TDs as well. We'll kind of pair up those 2 stacks, Allen with Diggs, Tua with Tyreek. Here's the problem though. Josh Allen has not been throwing for a lot of touchdowns. Even in these past 3 games, I have the box score up here on the screen. He hasn't cleared 2 touchdowns. However, he has been absolutely on fire with these rushing TDs. And Underdog has a number here that we can do. It's 0.5 rush in receiving TDs. So this is a very binary thing. If Josh Allen rushes in a TD, then we're going to hit this part of the entry. If he doesn't, we don't. And the reason I like doing this one is because Josh Allen has had 15 rushing TDs on the season. He's had 8 over the past 5 weeks, and he has only not scored a rushing touchdown in 4 of their games this season. So I really like this pick, and even though it doesn't directly correlate with Stefon Diggs' receiving yards, I actually think it makes sense, right? If Stefon Diggs is having a good game, if they're moving the ball down the field, there should be plenty of goal line opportunities for Josh Allen to do his tush push and get in the end zone. Now, one thing you'll notice here, we have 4 picks in this entry right now, which gives us a 10x, which is fine. But if we add one more pick for a 5x or for a 5th pick, we can get up to a 20x. And it doesn't take rocket scientists to know that one additional pick to double your multiplier from 10x to 20x is definitely the optimal thing to do. In general, we want to stay away from doing just 4 picks because that really limits our upside in the long term if we're only getting 10x, when just adding one more pick will give us an opportunity at a 20x. So there's a few different ways you could go with this. You know, another way I would like to do it is by tacking on another receiver, really playing through, hey, the Bills are going to have success through the air. So one way you could do that, Gabe Davis here, 37.5 receiving yards. We put him in here, and now we have our nice 20x on our 5-leg pick 'em. And the other thing is, this all tells a story, right? It's all correlated. These are all hires. We're expecting a lot of points. We're expecting a lot of success through the air. And if that comes together in a macro sense, there's a good chance that this pick 'em could hit. Now, the final way you can have a lot of fun with finishing out these pick 'ems is by utilizing some of their spices. Now, if you're looking on the screen here, you can see there's these chili peppers next to some of these player numbers. And so going back to Gabe Davis here, we have for him getting a rushing or receiving TD, we have a pick 'em multiplier at 2x, a 2x spice. Underdog calls them scorchers. And basically what they're saying is, hey, this isn't as binary as going higher or lower than a set of receiving yards. Gabe Davis is not going to always score a touchdown. It's more of a long shot. And so we're going to acknowledge that and give you more of a multiplier when he does hit that. So this is really fun because this entry right now, if I do his receiving yards, is 20x. If I put in the scorcher for the touchdown, this payout is now 40x because we get to 2x the rest of the overall pick 'em entry. So this is a really fun way to really kind of extrapolate how much you win when you're right. And again, the touchdown is going to be less likely. It's going to occur less frequently, but you're getting compensated for that via a bigger multiplier. So I now want to put everything together and show you how I would go about basically allocating a pick 'em bankroll for a specific game. And there are a lot of you might say, hey, I have 50 bucks that I'm willing to put on a game. How would you go about allocating that across various pick 'ems? I'm going to show you exactly what I would do. And also, I do just want to give the disclaimer, this is meant to be more of a tutorial on how to think through building out pick 'ems and how to build out your portfolio for a given game and thinking about your bankroll management. Obviously, I like these picks. I think it's a fun game, but I want you to be able to use these principles and these kind of guardrails to build out fun pick 'em entries throughout the playoffs, because we're going to have so many other games that you're going to want to be playing some pick 'ems on. So this is how I would go about it with a $50 bankroll. The first thing I would do is I would lock in my core, and I would probably use $30, so over half of my budget on this Stefon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. I'm going to lock that in for $90. So even if all of the other picks I'm about to make don't hit, I'm going to lock in a profit because my budget is $50 and this entry pays out $90. So I'm going to lock that in, and now I'm going to add a third entry here for $10. So this will end up representing 40 of my $50 budget. I am going to get this entry loaded back in here. One of the nice things about Underdog is when you make an entry, you can copy the link. You can either send that to a friend if they want to make the same entry as you, or if you want to do what I'm doing and just get it back in there. And I'm going to now do another entry, just adding that third leg with Tua. We had talked about that one before, Tua over 1.5 passing TDs. I like how that syncs up with Tyreek Hill. And if I can just get my, there we go. So we'll add him in here. And now I'm going to do another $10 on this. This is 10 to win 60. So now I'm basically creating a ladder around my core picks. If my core pick hits, well, what's that next logical extension? Well, maybe Tua passes for 2 TDs. And now I have spent 40 of my $50 budget for this game. And now I'm going to build out 2 5-pick versions, still building around this same core. So I'm going to add these back. I'm going to add that Josh Allen rushing TD that we really liked here. So that gets us to 4. And then I'm going to do 2 different versions of a 5-leg. The first one I'm going to do with just Gabe Davis passing yards. Or receiving yards, sorry. So I'm going to get that one in there for the 20x, higher than 37.5. And I'm just going to do $5 on this because this is less likely to occur. It's 5 different things that need to happen, but this pays out 5 to win 100, 20 to 1. So I've now spent $45 of my overall $50 budget, which is just an arbitrary budget that I decided for this video, but will hopefully give you some ideas of how you could think about allocating it. And then for my final one, I'm going to have a little fun here. I'm going to take the Gabe Davis higher out, and I'm going to put in the Gabe Davis spice. So I get the 40x multiplier. I'm going to do my last $5. I've already put $45 in action. This is my 50th, and this pays out 40 to 1. So $5 to win 200. I'm going to lock that in, and I've now built out a pick 'em portfolio for this single game in a logical, correlated fashion. And as always, I highly recommend checking out our free Underdog picks on our website. The team led by Geoff Ulrich always have some great stuff there. It'll give you ideas of things you can build off. All of this was built off a single idea of that Stefon Diggs pick. So hopefully you guys have fun doing this for the playoffs. It's a great alternative to doing drafts, other kinds of fantasy action. It's my new favorite way to sweat alongside these games. So join me on Underdog Fantasy. You can always use promo code LIFE to get up to $100 deposit match, and I will see you in those pick 'em streets.